But I'm excited for our next guest, Mark Medina, one of my favorites, covers the NBA, does an amazing job with Fox Sports Radio. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed 4th of July fireworks as everyone else, and thankfully it didn't involve too much free agency.
Oh, my gosh. I was just talking about July 4th, 2017, Mark, here in Salt Lake City with the Gordon Hayward news. I had to come back off of I had to come back off of a family trip. We were all at the lake with a boat and four-wheelers, and I got it back as quick as I could into studio, and we did, I want to say it was a 6-hour show where we sat down and we talked about it. So I don't know about you, but this 4th of July didn't match that one.
Yeah, and I don't think it's ever going to match it anymore because structurally the NBA has almost eliminated free agency. I mean, as you know, there used to always be a buildup of a star player meeting with teams, but now that, players can sign extensions all under the guise of they wanted teams to have a better ability to keep their star players, you're either having teams lock franchise players to extensions, or that becomes the fork in the road where it's clear to trade them. So you add that and the second apron concerns, and not a lot of fireworks since July 1st.
Not a lot of fireworks. Yesterday, what was the biggest news? Was it Buddy Hield? What was our biggest news yesterday?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the biggest news only because nothing else happened. I mean, Buddy Hield is a really good player. I know that he had a lot of interest, among a lot of teams because he provides a lot of good secondary scoring and three-point shooting, and that's a premium in the NBA. But, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's blockbuster news, obviously, but really when you compare that, really the main source of news this free agency had to do with Klay Thompson's departure and Paul George's departure. There's really not a lot of moving pieces left besides DeMar DeRozan that settles into the free agency picture.
Well, and what's tough with the Klay Thompson and Paul George moves, it all just feels too right. Like it all feels too normal. It's not irregular. It doesn't seem wacky or out of bounds. It just feels like Klay Thompson and Paul George are perfect fits for their current team, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there are question marks, I think, about Paul George's health, as it always is. And I think there's question marks with Klay Thompson on to what extent, if at all, can he ever become the Klay Thompson that we know pre-injuries in 2019. But I think even with those caveats aside, their fit is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Paul George is a great two-way player. You pair him up with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, that should certainly fit well from a basketball perspective. And then Klay Thompson, I would think fits in well with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving because those are two dynamic scorers and playmakers that should get a lot of defensive attention, and Klay Thompson will be the beneficiary of it. So it all makes sense from a basketball perspective on why those moves panned out the way they did.
Was this just the start of the purge for Golden State with Klay Thompson? Are we going to see a complete dismantling?
We've already seen that. I mean, this purge started in 2019. I mean, Kevin Durant leaving, them making different deals, them losing Andre Iguodala. This has already started. I think it's just been both the sudden and gradual process of the Warriors' identity getting stripped of itself. Partly because the players aren't the same as they were before, but I think the larger thing is the second apron. I mean, the bottom line is the Warriors used to make moves that were all about basketball. And I don't want to say that Joe Lacob was never cost-conscious. I think, like with a lot of owners, they're willing to spend money if it helps them win, and if not, you evaluate it. But here, a lot of these basketball decisions have to do with second apron concerns. And look, I know this might not sit well with your audience in Utah because there's always been a philosophical debate about big market, small market, but these second apron concerns I don't think addresses that at all. I mean, it really, I think, makes a owner, even if their instincts are to spend, not to spend. And I think that you want owners to invest in your product, number one. Number two, if Adam Silver in the league is going to put in mechanisms about, okay, we want to have an equal playing field between big, small markets, deep-pocketed owners and ones that aren't as deep-pocketed. I think that this mechanism goes against the grain of rewarding teams that are drafting. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we don't want to allow franchises to spend their way into championship contention by getting a lot of free agents. Let's reward the teams that draft well. Well, when you're looking at the Warriors, like Klay Thompson was a homegrown, developed talent. Yet these spending restrictions don't differentiate at all between players that they drafted and invested versus players that they acquired through the free agency market.
I don't understand how they didn't work that into the new collective bargaining, Mark, that they didn't make some exceptions for home draft, homegrown, home-developed players where you've got more power against the second apron, this luxury, this repeater that can hit you so violently that it's forcing a dynasty to fall apart. How did that not get built into that CBA?
Well, I don't know all the ins and outs with that because, like with any negotiation, there's always a back and forth with all the owners, and the players' union has to sign off on it. But look, I'm just going to call a spade here. Is that when you look at the 2011 lockout and other things, this is from my point of view. I think that the NBA a lot of times overcompensates to placate small market teams. And ironically, it comes from a good source because big market franchises always have more resources. They have, a better ability to make up for past mistakes, and they have location advantages. But I think that these concerns all stemmed from the league's concerns that fall under small market concerns. So frankly, I don't think it'll be addressed until the Oklahoma City Thunder make a stink about it when their young, developed talent are up for extensions, and then they have to make tough decisions because it's not just financial. It's about their ability to have full mid-level exceptions and access to signing players on better minimum deals. So I think that's really the crux of it.
I can see that. Mark Medina, one of the best in the NBA with Fox Sports Radio, does a fantastic job just hitting a little bit of free agency and otherwise. I think one of the most shocking things that came across the draft was the Bronny James deal, and obviously it's been pushed the most in the media. I'm just curious, give me your thoughts on the Bronny deal that was signed and kind of your expectations of what Bronny James is going to be with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, there's so many things to unpack, as with Eddie's story involving Bronny James or, obviously LeBron. I think every positive, negative question, it's all fair. So, any notion that this shouldn't be open for criticism, I think, what are we here for, right? That's what the media's existence is. But I think that there is an overreaction to certain things because it's Bronny. And so, for example, the reaction to that, he's getting the contract that he's getting. That's what a contract is for every second-round pick. And so anyone that's doing a comparison about, what Nikola Jokic got, for example, I don't think it's coming from someone that wants to have a fair debate because Nikola Jokic got a number that's lower because the salary cap was a lot lower when he was drafted. And it was well before the TV deal kicked into place where there was a salary cap spike. I also don't think, I don't believe when the Lakers say, LeBron had nothing to do with it and it had more to do with his basketball talent. Clearly LeBron, his angle and his influence played a factor, but we're talking about a 55th pick. The Lakers didn't select him at 17. They didn't trade up higher in the second round to get him. And when you talk to other basketball evaluators around the league, there was a mix of he's good to be picked in the late second round or go undrafted pick in the G League. So to what extent LeBron had an influence or not, I think the influence was only as good as, we'll pick him at 55 because we have a pick there, and it's a matter of convenience. I don't think the Lakers would have picked him if they didn't have a second-round pick. And if they didn't have a second-round pick, I don't think they would have traded up and moved heaven and earth just to make it happen. So I don't have a problem with it, but obviously he's going to get a lot more attention for better and for worse because of LeBron and, what the expectations are. But I think what the expectations are for Bronny, he's selected 55th for a reason. He doesn't have a defined skill set on either end of the floor, but in fairness, most second-round picks don't. That's drafted that late. And I think the good thing that he has going for him is people even outside the Lakers do say he plays the right way, he has a good attitude, he's professional, and there's something to be said, especially for someone his age, that shows the kind of mental resiliency to, bounce back from such a dramatic health scare from a cardiac arrest, as well as just deal with the attention spotlight that comes with being LeBron James' son. So I think with that, there is a lot of optimism that he could carve a path in the NBA and have a long career as a good role player. So that's that.
As far as carving a long career path, is that potentially J.J. Redick with the Los Angeles Lakers here, Mark?
Well, look, how long does any NBA coach last in the league? Like a few years? So, yeah, unless you're Greg Popovich or Steve Kerr, they're the exceptions, not the norm. But to my point earlier, no one knows what his trajectory is. No one's projecting he's going to be an all-star player. But I think, there seems to be a pathway. He could be a guy in a rotation, that serves a role player for 15, 20 minutes a game for, a decade or so. And, people have made successful careers out of that. It's not the same as Hall of Fame career or All-Star caliber career, but it is a career. But at least in the short term, he's not on a two-way contract. He's on a regular season contract.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like he's going to spend all of his time in the G League, but I don't think that he's going to be part of the rotation itself either. So I think likely what's going to happen here, he's obviously playing in Summer League. He's going to get whatever runs he can in preseason. If he plays minutes in the regular season, I think it'll be spot minutes when, blowout wins and losses, and most of his development will be, in practices.
Well, Mark, love your coverage. I know you're one of the best to do it. Appreciate your time on a July 5th coming just after the 4th of July. I know you're probably busy with family and all kinds of things, but we appreciate you, Mark.
No, appreciate you guys as always, and always fun talking hoops.
No doubt about it. Mark Medina, NBA insider for Fox Sports Radio.